The divorce was supposed to be fair. That's what the lawyers said, what the mediators promised, what I naively believed for 11 months of hell. We'd been married for 14 years, built a life together, raised 2 children, accumulated the usual detritus of a long marriage, a house, retirement accounts, college funds, a timeshare in Mexico we both secretly hated. I didn't want to fight. I just wanted what was mine. What we'd built together. What I'd sacrificed my career for when the kids came along. Vincent agreed. At least, he agreed in front of the judge. He sat there in his expensive suit, his face arranged into an expression of reasonable regret, and swore under oath that he'd disclosed everything. Every account. Every asset. Every penny. I believed him because I had no choice but to believe him. The alternative was a decade of litigation I couldn't afford and a nervous breakdown I could feel creeping up my spine. The settlement was final on a Tuesday. I got the house with a mortgage I could barely afford, half the retirement accounts, which turned out to be much smaller than I'd expected, and primary custody of the kids, which was never in question. Vincent got his freedom, his new condo downtown, and as I discovered 6 months later, approximately $800,000 he'd hidden so well that even the forensic accountant I'd begged to hire never found a trace. I discovered the truth by accident. A piece of mail forwarded to my house by mistake. A bank statement from an institution I'd never heard of, addressed to Vincent at an address I didn't recognize. The balance at the top was $423,000. The transactions showed regular deposits dating back 3 years, bonuses, commissions, consulting fees he'd never mentioned, never declared, never split. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages. There was more. Much more. By the time I reached the last page, I tallied over $800,000. $800,000 he'd siphoned from our marriage while I clipped coupons and bought generic cereal. I called my lawyer the next morning. She listened, then sighed. We can go back to court, contempt, fraud, concealment of assets, but it'll take years, cost a fortune, and he'll just hide it again. These guys are professionals at this. Then what do? She was quiet for a moment, honestly. Sometimes the best revenge isn't legal, it's personal. I thought about that for a long time. I thought about Vincent's new wife, a woman named Brooke, whom he'd started dating before our divorce was even final. I'd never met her, but I knew things about her. She was 10 years younger than me. She'd been his work wife for 2 years before our marriage ended. She had an Instagram feed full of inspirational quotes and photos of her perfect life with my ex-husband. She also had, according to my research, no idea that Vincent had been hiding money from me. She thought he was generous, transparent, the kind of man who shared everything. She thought wrong. I started with the mail. The bank statement was the first piece, but there were others. Credit card bills from accounts I didn't know about. Statements from investment platforms I'd never heard of. A deed to a small cabin in the mountains, a fishing retreat he'd told me was a rental, but the deed showed his name only, purchased 3 years ago. I collected everything, organized it by date, and built a file. A file that told the story of a man who had systematically looted his own marriage while smiling in court and swearing he had nothing left. The file grew thick. Bank accounts into different states. A safe deposit box in Nevada. Cryptocurrency wallets he'd never mentioned. A small business he'd started in his brother's name that was, in reality, entirely his. By the time I finished, the total was just over $1 million. $1 million he'd stolen from me, from our children, from the life we'd built together. I didn't go back to court, The lawyer was right, it would take years, cost everything, and he'd probably find a way to hide it again. Instead, I made a plan. A plan that didn't involve judges or lawyers or years of appeals. A plan that involved a manila envelope, a burner phone, and the address of the house where Vincent and Brooke lived. I found the house easily enough. It was in a nice neighborhood, the kind of place where every lawn is perfect and every driveway holds to late model cars. I drove past it once, twice, a dozen times, learning the rhythm of their lives. Brooke left for work at 8:15. Vincent left at 8:45. They were home by 6:30 most nights. On weekends, they went to brunch, to the farmer's market, to the kind of Instagrammable locations that Brooke documented for her followers. They looked happy. They looked like a couple with no secrets. I waited for the perfect moment, a Thursday in October, when Vincent had a business trip to Chicago, a trip I knew about because my daughter mentioned it during one of our phone calls. Daddy's going to Chicago for a conference, Brooke's staying home because she has a big work. Thing perfect, 3 days, alone, with no one to intercept the mail. On the Tuesday before he left, I drove to their neighborhood one last time. I parked 2 streets over, walked to their house with my head down, and slipped the manila envelope into their mailbox. It wasn't sealed. I wanted Brooke to find it, to open it, to see what was inside before Vincent had any chance to explain. Inside the envelope was a single sheet of paper, printed on both sides. On one side, a list. Every hidden account, every undisclosed asset, every lie Vincent had told under oath. Account numbers, balances, dates, locations. The cabin in the mountains. The crypto wallets. The business in his brother's name. The safe deposit box in Nevada. On the other side, a single question, printed in bold type at the center of the page. Did he tell you about any of this before you married him? I didn't sign it. I didn't leave a return address. I just walked away, got in my car, and drove home. The hard part was over. Now all I had to do was wait. The waiting was the hardest part. I checked Brooke's Instagram obsessively, watching for any sign that the bomb had detonated. For 2 days, nothing. Pretty photos of her lattes, her workouts, her perfectly arranged flower arrangements. Then, on the 3rd day, a post at 2:47 a.m. A black screen with white text. Sometimes the people closest to us are strangers. The comments flooded with concerned friends asking if she was okay. She didn't respond. The next morning, my phone rang. Vincent's name on the caller ID. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity and a deep, cold satisfaction made me pick up. What did you do? His voice was raw, shredded, nothing like the smooth confidence he'd worn through our divorce. I don't know what you're talking about, Vincent. Don't play games. Brooke found. She found something, a list. Bank accounts, the cabin, everything. She left last night. Took her things and went to her mother's. She said she can't trust me. She said I'm a liar. She said, his voice broke. She said she's contacting a lawyer. I said nothing. Just listened to him breathe, ragged and broken, on the other end of the line. Was it you? Did you send that? I told you. I don't know what you're talking about. I paused, letting the silence stretch. But if someone did send her proof that you're a liar and a cheat, maybe you should ask yourself why so many people in your life have evidence of your deception. He hung up. I smiled and went back to my coffee. The next few weeks were a cascade of consequences. Brooke filed for divorce within a month, citing fraud and concealment of assets, the same language I'd used, the same wounds I'd suffered. Vincent tried to fight it, but the evidence was there, undeniable, and Brooke's lawyer was better than mine had been. She walked away with half of everything, including the hidden assets I'd exposed. Not my half, her half. But that was fine. She'd earned it. Vincent's business partners got wind of the scandal. A man who hides assets from his wife, they reasoned, might hide them from investors too. His contracts dried up. His reputation crumbled. The business in his brother's name was seized as part of the divorce proceedings, and his brother, feeling used and betrayed, stopped speaking to him entirely. The cabin in the mountains went into foreclosure. I know because I checked. I thought about buying it, just to spite him, but I didn't want anything of his near me. Let it rot. Let the bank take it. Let the memory of his lies crumble into dust. The kids noticed, of course. They were old enough to understand that their father was going through something, young enough to be confused and hurt. I didn't badmouth him to them. I didn't have to. His own choices spoke loud enough. When they visited him on weekends, they came back with stories of a man who seemed smaller, sadder, somehow diminished. The charismatic father they'd known was gone. In his place was someone hollowed out by the consequences of his own greed. A year passed, then two. I rebuilt my life, slowly, painfully, one brick at a time. I went back to school, finished the degree I'd abandoned when the kids were born. I started a small business, a bookstore, of all things, the dream I'd had since I was a girl. It struggled at first, then found its footing, then became the heart of a little community I'd built around myself. The kids helped on weekends, learning the value of work, of honesty, of building something real. I heard about Brooke through mutual friends. She'd remarried, a decent man, and had a baby. She sent me a message once, through a friend of a friend, "Thank you. I don't know who you are, but thank you." I never responded. She didn't need to know. She just needed to live her life, free of the liar she'd almost married. Vincent called me once more, about 3 years after the divorce. Drunk, slurring, pathetic. "You ruined me," he said. "You took everything." I didn't take anything, Vincent. I just showed people who you really are. The rest was all you. He started crying, actually sobbing like a child. I loved you. I loved our family. I never meant for any of this to happen. Yes, I said quietly, you did. You meant to hide that money. You meant to cheat me. You meant to lie under oath. You meant to build a secret life while pretending to be someone else. You meant all of it. And now you're living with the consequences. Goodbye, Vincent. I hung up and blocked the number. I never heard from him again. Now, years later, I think about that manila envelope sometimes. The moment it slipped into the mailbox. The quiet satisfaction of knowing that a few pieces of paper could unravel a life so completely. Some people would say I was cruel. Some people would say I should have gone through the courts, let the system handle it. But the system had failed me. The system had let him lie, had let him steal, had let him walk away with a fortune while I struggled. The system didn't care about justice. It cared about procedure, about paperwork, about moving cases through the docket. I cared about justice. And justice, I learned, doesn't always come from a judge. Sometimes it comes from a woman with a burner phone and an envelope full of truth. My daughter asked me once, years later, what happened between me and her father. I told her the truth, not all of it, but enough. I told her that he made choices, and those choices had consequences. I told her that sometimes people we love disappoint us, and we have to decide who we want to be in response. I told her that I chose to be someone who fights for what's right, even when it's hard, even when it's lonely. She's a teenager now, smart and fierce and nothing like her father. Sometimes I see her looking at me with questions in her eyes, and I know she's wondering if she'll ever understand the full story. Maybe one day I'll tell her. Maybe one day I'll show her the file I still keep, the proof of what her father did, the record of how I fought back. But not yet. She's still too young to carry that weight. For now, I just live. I run my bookstore. I watch my kids grow. I tend the garden in my backyard, the one I planted after the divorce, the one that blooms brighter every year. And sometimes, on quiet evenings, I think about Vincent. About the choices he made, the life he could have had, the family he threw away for money he'll never enjoy. I hope he thinks about it too. I hope it haunts him. I hope every time he closes his eyes, he sees that manila envelope, that list of secrets, that moment when his new wife looked at him and saw a stranger. But mostly, I don't think about him at all. I'm too busy living the life I built from the rubble he left behind. It's not the life I planned. It's not the life I thought I'd have. But it's mine, every honest, hard-won piece of it. And that's more than he ever had. The hidden assets are gone now, scattered to lawyers and ex-wives and foreclosure sales. The hidden mistress's address led to a divorce, a scandal, a man alone with nothing but regrets. And somewhere, in a house I'll never see, a woman named Brooke is raising a child with a man who tells her the truth. That's the thing about truth, it always comes out eventually. Sometimes it just needs a little help finding the mailbox.